Ladies and gentlemen, and this is Civilization on the Brink of Collapse by the channel Kurzgesagt in a nutshell. What we owe the future is available now. You can get 50% off. That's a book, I guess. Okay. Wait a minute, Kurzgesagt wrote the book or something? Yeah. Okay, so this is a... I mean, look, the recent conflicts that is happening obviously started this year with the Ukraine and now tension arising with Taiwan. Yeah, as soon as I saw this title, right, in the night notification, I'm like, yeah, I know where his thinking is going. But yeah, this is an interesting topic, and it's going to be interesting what Kurzgesagt is going to cover in this one. But so far in our human history, right, this has been the case a lot, right? There's always been multiple dark ages, the Bronze Age collapse, this age collapse, Roman Empire collapsing. And yeah, this is a good topic, and obviously it's also one of the filters, right? Great filters. Like, can we survive our own self? Because we kill ourselves eventually, right? At a larger scale. But we seem to survive all the time, right? But that's how we are here. So yeah, this is an interesting topic. So let's watch it. Remember, if you like my Rickson, don't forget to subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more. I love science or any scientific topic, because it's so far the best channel I've seen on YouTube with a scientific topic. That's why I can't wait to react to the Kurzgesagt video whenever it pops up. So yeah, that's what it is.
At its height, the Roman Empire was home to about 30% of the world's population.
30%.
And in many ways, it was the pinnacle of human advancement. Its citizens enjoyed the benefit.
30%. Whoa, that's a big, right? Holy shit. Like, with the, 7 or so billion today, India having the biggest population ever, 1 billion or something, that would still make it like, about, I don't know, 15% or something, right? So, damn, so 30%, that's a big.
Bits of central heating, concrete, double glazing, banking, international trade, and upward social mobility. Rome became the first city in history with 1 million inhabitants and was a center of technological, legal, and economic progress. An empire impossible to topple, stable and rich and powerful. Until it wasn't anymore. First slowly, then suddenly.
Yeah, okay. That's not completely true, is it? I mean, Roman Empire from the start were kind of at the target of barbarians, as they call them, right? All the tribal folks from around. Obviously, at a 1,000-year empire that Roman Empire was, there are patches of times that were just peaceful, but they were constantly under attack by... I mean, if you are look at the Roman Empire at the time they were. They look like one of the most technological people at the time, right? Nobody else can come close. So obviously people are going to attack you. And they got big in technology and wealth in a way. Look at all the aqueducts and shit. So they got big in that way and also got bigger in size. I mean, look at this size, right? This is not a small place, especially around the time. So they were too big to, I guess, defend and manage. That's why they were constantly thinking a way to, I guess, defend themselves, right? They changed how their leadership was, tetrarchy and shit like that. And then the wall, Hadrian Wall and this and that, right? Look at the Constantinople. That's all the centuries of history, like how to defend yourself accumulated in that one city. And how hard it was to siege Constantinople. Nobody did it until 1300s or something. So yeah.
Suddenly, the most powerful civilization on Earth collapsed. By civilization, we mean a complex society where labor is specialized and social classes emerge, and which is ruled by institutions. Civilizations share a dominant mutual language and culture, and domesticate plants and animals to feed and sustain large cities, where they often construct impressive monuments. Civilization lets us become efficient on large scales, collect vast amounts of knowledge, and put human ingenuity and the natural resources of the world to work. Without civilization, most people would never have been born, which makes it a bit concerning that collapse is the rule, not the exception. Virtually all civilizations end, on average, after 340 years.
Phoenicia, Roman Empire, ancient Egypt, first Babylonian, classical Greek. It's surprising to see classical Greek, how small it was compared to all this, 265 years, but Akkadian Empire.
Collapse is rarely nice for individuals. Their shared cultural identity is shattered as institutions lose the power to organize people. Knowledge is lost, living standards fall, violence increases, and often the population declines. the civilization either completely disappears, is absorbed by stronger neighbors, or something new emerges, sometimes with more primitive technology than before.
Yeah.
If this is how it's been over the ages, what about us today? Just as Europeans forgot how to build indoor plumbing and make cement, will we lose our industrial technology, and with that our greatest achievements, from $1 pizza to smartphones or laser
$1
eye
pizza.
surgery? Will all this go away too? Today, our cities stretch for thousands of square kilometers. We travel the skies. Our communication is instant. Industrial agriculture with engineered high-yield plants, efficient machinery and high-potency fertilizer feeds billions of people. Modern medicine gives us the longest lifespan we've ever had, while industrial technology gives us an unprecedented level of comfort and abundance, even though we haven't yet learned to attain them without destroying our ecosphere.
Yeah.
There are arguably still different civilizations around today that compete and coexist with each other, but together they also form a singular global civilization.
Yeah, about to say that. Like in the past civilization, there were pockets of civilization around the entire earth, right? Roman Empire, Babylonians, this and that. So basically, today's world, obviously all countries are themselves and they look out for themselves, but the world economy and technology kind of rises together in a way, right? You go to the poorest country today, you still find people with smartphones and Wi-Fi's. So I don't think civilization, if it's going to collapse, it's going to collapse the same way it did with the Romans and shit, right? Human factor is still going to be there. Humans are the one who's going to destroy themselves. But still, it's going to be a bit different.
But this modern globalized civilization is even more vulnerable in some ways than past empires,
Yeah, with the
because we
viruses.
are much more deeply interconnected. A collapse of the industrialized world literally means that the majority of people alive today would perish, since without industrial agriculture, we would no longer be able to feed them.
We are way too
And
connected.
there's an even greater risk. What if a collapse was so deeply destructive that we were unable to reindustrialize again? What if it ruined our chances of enjoying a flourishing future as a multiplanetary species?
Like Mad Max.
A global civilizational collapse could be an existential catastrophe, something that ruins not just the lives of everyone alive today, but all the future generations that could have come into being. All the knowledge we might have discovered, the art we might have created, the joys we might have experienced would be lost. So, how likely is all of this? Let's start with some good news. While civilization collapses have happened regularly, none have ever derailed the course of global civilization. Rome collapsed, but the Aksumite Empire, or the Teotihuacans,
I don't know, man. I like the same point I made it about the how civilization collapse is probably not gonna happen with the today's world, because we are so connected globally. It also makes everybody enemy. If collapse starts, it's gonna collapse everybody. Before, it's just like a very pocketed place. The world was too big for us. Now world is not too big for us. That's the thing, right? So some kind of, like let's say, nuclear winter happens. Everybody's gonna get screwed. Some pocket of places get destroyed. We depend on those places economically, right? I mean, there was like a bit of, not recession, but a bit of dip in economy in Britain happened, and everywhere else prices rose up. I mean, that's how the world works right now, right? I mean, with the current conflict, we're going to face issues because of that in the next decade in economy, because the ripples are way bigger. It's not going to go well like that. So, yeah, and recession is coming, like everybody's saying, like this is just fucked up all around. So if everybody collapses, it's going to be hard collapse for everyone. But I think humans will go on. One thing's for true, us mammal, is that even in the dinosaur times, we survived underground. After that, throughout the years, we survived lots of catastrophic events, right? Lots of civilization collapse. So we might not be cockroaches, but we can survive too, right? So I think humans will survive, sure, if something really bad happens. But the way we are connected, the current world we see, and we just thinking like, oh, in 50 years, where will be? In 100 years, how is our civilization going to be? That's the thing, right? It could be that we become interplanetary or, intergalactic civilization. Who the fuck knows? But it could also mean that something close to Mad Max or Fallout can happen too. But as far as recovering technology, I think that's not going to be hard. right? Because lots of shit that we make today gonna last for thousands of years, it's not gonna decay. So even if some civilization collapse happen, knowledge gets lost, nobody knows what happened before, people will still find shit that we made, right? And it's not going to be same as before, right? Maybe we won't have complex technology as we have today, but somewhat of similar things will start to rise up again, right? Humanity won't go back to like a Stone Age or something, or even Bronze Age, Iron Age, whatever, right? It will have something. Like there are lots of games and movies like this, right? Like some civilization collapse. They have certain things so primitive, but certain thing is so technological, right? What was that game? I forgot the recent game that is so famous, open world, right? Where the people hunt these machines with the bows and shit. So something like that could happen. Who the fuck? I'm not like hunting the machine, but some major technology could be salvaged while other simple things they don't have, so that it's primitive. But yeah, it's not going to completely collapse.
And of course, the Byzantine Empire carried on. What about sudden population crashes? So far, we've not seen a catastrophe that has killed much more than 10% of the global population. No pandemic, no natural disaster, no war. The last clear example of a rapid global population decrease was the Black Death, a pandemic of the bubonic plague in the 14th century that spread across the Middle East and Europe and killed a third of all Europeans and about 1/10 of the global population. If any event was going to cause the collapse of civilization, that should have been it. But even the Black Death demonstrates humanity's resilience more than its fragility. While the old societies were massively disrupted in the short term, the intense loss of human lives and suffering did little to negatively impact European economic and technological development in the long run. Population size recovered within 2 centuries, and just 2 centuries later, the Industrial Revolution began. History is full of incredible recoveries from horrible tragedies. Take the atomic bombing of Hiroshima during World War II.
Yeah, so I'll say this many times, and certain people have always like issues with it in comments, but I always say technology and science and innovation is the only thing can lead civilization forward, and that graph clearly shows Industrial Revolution, right, was kind of spearheaded through innovations, right? Because of scientists like Michael Faraday, and this kind became possible with the motorization of thing, and population shot up from there, right? So civilization can only go forward if the innovations happen. People always are like, no, innovation is not the only thing. Yeah, it kind of is, right? If you just look at the core of things, everywhere you'll find some form of innovation spearheads the civilization forward. So yeah, if innovation keep happening even with after disasters, right, people can rise up basically.
140,000 people were killed, and 90% of the city was at least partially incinerated or reduced to rubble.
Damn.
But against all odds, they made a remarkable recovery.
That is surprising.
Hiroshima's population recovered within a decade, and today it's a thriving city of 1.2 million people.
That is surprising.
None of this made these horrible events any less horrible for those who lived through them. But for us as a species, these signs of resilience are good news. Why recovery is likely even in the worst case. One thing that's different from historic collapses is that humanity now has unprecedented destructive power. Today's nuclear arsenals are so powerful that all-out global war could cause a nuclear winter and billions of deaths. Our knowledge of our own biology and how to manipulate it is getting so advanced that it's becoming possible to engineer viruses as contagious as the coronavirus and as deadly as Ebola. Increasingly, the risk of global pandemics is much higher than in the past. So we may cause a collapse ourselves, and it might be much worse than the things nature has thrown at us so far. But if, say, 99% of the population died, would global civilization collapse forever?
No,
Could we recover from such a tragedy? We have some reasons to be optimistic. Let's start with food. There are 1 billion agricultural workers today, so even if the global population fell to just 80 million, it's virtually guaranteed that many survivors would know how to produce food. And we don't need to start at square one, because we could still use modern high-yield crops. Maize is 10 times bigger than its wild ancestor. Ancient tomatoes were the size of today's peas.
Yeah.
After agriculture, the next step towards recovery would be rebuilding industrial capacity like power grids and automated manufacturing. A huge problem is that our economies of scale make it impossible to just pick up where we left off. Many of our high-tech industries are only functional because
Yeah, but somebody will find some server somewhere and somehow can connect to some computer that is still survived and find something like crash courses and shit, that online courses that has become way too common now. Find all the data bank and just learn shit again, right? I mean, that might feel like, oh, isn't that fun? No, it's not funny, really. That could really happen, right? All this internet age, data is somewhat secured because it's stored in so many servers, right? Too many courses online nowadays. You could find way too many different apps, websites that teaches things. There are many, like what was a master course or whatever that was, right? So even though if not all knowledge, lots of at least basic and some knowledge can be recovered from something like that, and people can just build up from there.
of huge demand and intensely interconnected supply chains across different continents.
Yeah.
Even if our infrastructure were left unharmed, we would make huge steps backwards technologically. But then again, we are thinking in larger timeframes. Industrialization originally happened 12,000 years after the agricultural revolution. So if we need to start over after a massive collapse, it shouldn't be that hard to reindustrialize, at least on evolutionary timescales.
I don't think it's going to take 10,000 because it's really hard to innovate, right? Reverse engineering is not that hard. So a few centuries at best, I think most of things can be recovered. Like I said, the servers and something like satellites, right? Eventually some satellite is going to collapse down. Somebody's going to find remains of it, find some data from it. Something can be recovered, right? But yeah, like Newton said, I only can see farther because I stood on top of the giants or something, right? But if the giants are dead, it's going to be hard to see further. So yeah, it's going to be hard. I mean, we're not going to go back to it's not going to like how Taiwan is making like a 3 nanometer transistors. Nobody's going to be able to do that immediately. But yeah.
Hitch though. The Industrial Revolution was fueled literally by burning easily accessible coal, and we are still very much reliant on it. If we use it all up today, aside from making rapid climate change much worse, we could hinder our ability to recover from a huge crisis. So we should stop using easy-to-access coal so it can serve as a civilization insurance in case something bad happens. Another thing that...
Hold up there. Look, fossil fuels is limited, but over the time it's going to get regenerated again because of all the dead matter, right? So if civilization die, most of the people dies. Eventually, even if it's like a few thousand years, right? Whoever's left will find some kind of a fuel eventually, right? And I highly doubt all the coals are going to get used up. If 80 million survive, how much coals they're going to need anyway? So I don't know. For surviving, they can use that. But they would immediately realize that this is very limited. We need to think of something else, right? And like I said, remains of solar panels and shit, right? Some plan of hydro dam somewhere. People realize like how to use reusable energy eventually.
Makes recovery likely is that we'd probably have most of the information we need to rebuild civilization. We would certainly lose a lot of crucial institutional knowledge, especially on hard drives that nobody could read or operate anymore. But a lot of the technological, scientific, and cultural knowledge stored in the world's 2.6 million libraries would survive the catastrophe. The post-collapse survivors would know what used to be possible, and they could reverse engineer some of the tools and machines they'd find.
With the server thing, like you said, it's hard to read at start. But let's just say if I grab somebody who's mildly smarter, he's a teenager, and give him some kind of server and say, I'm not going to tell you anything, just take it apart, I'll give you 3 servers, take it apart. He'll understand something from it, right? Reverse engineering, even a teenager, right? So I do like to think that humans are smart, certain humans are really smart. And if somebody starts to take things apart, like, remains of servers and shit, they will eventually realize like how this works.
In conclusion, despite the bleak prospect of catastrophic threats, natural or created by ourselves, there is reason for optimism. Humankind is remarkably resilient, and even in the case of a global civilizational collapse, it seems likely that we would be able to recover, even if many people were to perish or suffer immense hardship, even if we lost cultural and technological achievements in the process. But given the stakes, the risks are still unnervingly high. Nuclear war and dangerous pandemics threaten the amazing global civilization we have built. Humanity is like a teenager, speeding around blind corners, drunk without a seatbelt.
Yeah.
The good news is that it's still early enough to prepare for and to mitigate these risks. We just need to actually do it.
And good
We
luck with
made
that
this
shit.
video together with Will MacAskill, a professor of philosophy at Oxford and one of the founders of the effective altruism movement, which is about doing the most good you can with your time and money. Will just published a new
it's his
book
book.
called What We Owe the Future, which is about how you can positively impact the long-term future of our world. If you
Yeah, a conservative of watching that, like what I owe to the future. This is mine, future is mine, everything's mine. Okay. So yeah, is civilization on the brink of collapse? It's giving you the feeling, right? Because even 2010s were not that bad, right? If anything, lots of technological jumps happen in 2010s, right? Lots of AI advancement happen, robotic advancement happen, right? So, transistor advancement, like we are at 3 nanometer now, right? We are making. But 2020s, I don't know. It feels bleak with the start of it. But I don't know. I still have hope that in just 2-3 years, maybe things can go back to normal again. We start to make big jumps again. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, it could be a collapse coming in future. Let's hope not. But if it does, I think we as humans can survive. How bad is going to be the collapse? Who knows? It could be a mild collapse, and we are no longer advanced that we are today. Something. We have limiting resources. We don't have enough resources to, I guess, develop modern technologies. Something stagnating can happen. But yeah. Alright, well, that was a civilization on the brink of collapse of the channel Kurzgesagt. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.